Thrawn has been exiled for 10 years, and thanks to the latest episode, we know exactly where we sit on the timeline. Well, roughly, which is after the finale of Season 3 Mandalorian, which funnily enough gives us a pretty good idea when it comes to Imperial remnants. During Moff Gideon's meeting, we see several key figures, including Thrawn's right-hand man, Captain Pellaeon. They are more coordinated than the New Republic can imagine. It did seem there was going to be some kind of fracturing as Gideon talked about taking over, having not seen Thrawn since before the Galactic Civil War. Pellaeon must have been in contact with Morgan Elsbeth. And let's follow on from that. Pellaeon must have been in contact with Morgan Elsbeth. Thrawn has been gone for how many years? And then Elsbeth comes up and says, hey, I know where Thrawn is. I'm going to get Thrawn to be this however far away, keep everyone in line, and that is enough. He hears from a Night Sister, he's that hopeful for the return of Thrawn that he can keep them all in check. Now that, it's just unbelievable the amount of loyalty that Thrawn has. As we all know, spoilers for Mandalorian Season 3 by the way, Gideon dies, which wipes out any chance of them fracturing too much. After all, Thrawn has been the leader this long, even without any kind of contact, while exiled. So we can all imagine how quickly everyone will step in line when they see Thrawn step into the hologram. Something we all have to remember, as we have seen in Mando and Ahsoka, but former Imperials are everywhere. Not all of them are staunch loyalists, but in a galaxy of trillions, it adds up, especially when a large portion of the population don't care who rules so long as they make credits. Thrawn's current state is not one of strength. His seemingly alive Legion's numbers are dwindling. Without the ability to get new armor or equipment, that's not surprising. But they've had a fortress of a ship, the Chimera, and the backing of the Night Sister Great Mothers. You'd initially think that if he gets back to the galaxy, he will be met with immediate resistance, but with the lack of any kind of urgency from the Senate, either from secret imperialists or pacifists, I think he will initially thrive. I expect the finale to end on Thrawn not only back in the galaxy, but to end on him reuniting with the, in quote, fractured Imperials, reunited under one banner. And if there are any naysayers, they'll be dealt with quick. Thrawn, in essence, knows nothing of Luke Skywalker and his new Jedi Academy. Mandalore is back under Mandalorian control, however, I think they won't be in the game for a while, as they are rebuilding their fractured homeworld. In between Ahsoka Season 1 and 2, my aim is to read the Thrawn trilogy, because as we all know, Filoni loves to grab the best parts of the expanded universe and make it canon, and he's been working with the author, Timothy Zahn, so I'm hoping we can use it as a good idea of some of the big moves that might play out. I was today years old when I learned about Thrawn's Empire of the Hand. Back to what I was getting at. Thrawn will come back to the galaxy at large. His simple appearance will be enough to call back the legions should he need them. His existing troops will be re-kitted and be like his own version of the 501st or Vader's Fist, and there is no saying that the latest version of the Dark Troopers won't be available to him either. If we can assume that every Imperial we saw in the Council has a Star Destroyer or a light cruiser or two on hand, it would be quite the fleet at his disposal. Quite little is known about this time between the original and the sequel trilogy, so they have quite an open book on what could happen. All we do know is that Thrawn isn't around in the sequels, which could genuinely be from old age. After all, I think his character's approaching nearly 70, making him over 90 by the time Rise of Skywalker comes out. We currently do not know what Thrawn has been doing out here. Has he been on this planet just drilling troops while occasionally trying to find Ezra? Or has Thrawn been mapping out the unknown regions? I'm going to assume that his ship is space-worthy due to Morgan's giant hyperspace ring, but he hasn't grown in numbers, and a part of me hopes he has mapped this place out, and we have another excuse to see this galaxy. But one thing is certain, there isn't another empire out here under Thrawn's control. Battle of Jakku marked the official end of the Empire as we know it. There are still fractures, but that was only 5 years before the events of Ahsoka. A combination of rogue factions and others vanishing into unknown regions, it's odd to think just how recent this actually is. If anyone deserves a raise, it's freaking Captain Pellaeon, who has somehow not only kept Thrawn relevant many years after his disappearance, but 5 years after the total collapse of the Empire, and this is that unwavering loyalty I was speaking of. Meanwhile, other Imperial remnants are building the First Order. The more time goes on, the more I think this won't tie in with the First Order or the sequels. Some people are being hateful or hopeful, depending on how you look at it, and wishing this will replace the sequel trilogy. It isn't, and we are simply getting a show that will fill the time between these eras, much like Clone Wars did, but with a lot more time and freedom available. I did initially think that Thrawn had no idea who the First Order is. Now, this is true at the moment, but it doesn't mean he won't know about the First Order forever. Because a part of the Shadow Council is Brendan Hux. I think it's Brendan Hux, anyway. General Hux, we'll say that. And he is essentially one of the founders of the First Order. So this could tie into the sequel trilogy. I still don't think it's a factor, because like I said, Thrawn will be nearly 90 years old. There's no way the game he's going to play is going to play after his time, in my opinion. I think he wants to enact a lasting change in his lifetime and maybe set them up after he's gone. I think it's safe to say that Thrawn doesn't know about the Emperor, and I really hope that he goes out on forming his own empire. Thrawn's army will rival the New Republic. We saw in Mando Season 3 the state of the New Republic. Lack of funding, trying to not look at the Empire, which means it's already begun to demilitarize. It's deleting all records of the Empire's technology, meaning that despite all the fighting, they won't really be any better off. I would actually like to see the Chimera versus the New Republic cruiser and see the difference, because I have a feeling they'll be equal or Thrawn will have an edge. I think he'll carve out his own territory. They will consolidate their forces with the remaining remnants and those who are still loyal to the Empire, but working for the New Republic. It's actually a wonder if any particular planet will be loyal. After Project Cinder, we first saw this in Battlefront 2 by EA, and again mentioned in Mando Season 2. There is something about the Empire wanting you to burn down with the death of your leader that seems to inspire that level of empire or death. Thrawn to me is the most compelling and deadly villain that doesn't wield the Force. Cold and calculating, happily sacrificing troops to gain intel, and in the last episode alone, he was happy despite the fact that Sabine, Ezra, and Ahsoka are reunited, because he's able to see the objective at hand, which is different from a lot of the incompetence that we saw from the other Imperials during the Civil War. I'm convinced that Thrawn will be the main villain of Filoni's movie, and if for some reason Yuuzhan Vong are introduced, we may see them weirdly band together, but maybe that's a video for another time. The culmination of Ahsoka and Mando will be Filoni's movie, and Thrawn is the new Emperor, or, if you're a Marvel chap, Thanos. I like to remember that George Lucas hated killing off characters purely for the sake of making the audience feel something. He was told many times to kill off Han Solo, because it would make the audience more invested, and remind the stakes at play. But if death is ever to happen to any of these characters, it will really mean something. As usual, I had a blast making this video. I'll be interested to see how it plays out. And I would rather this show stand on its own feet, stand and really stand with his own ambitions, with the idea of like not being tethered by the Emperor. Feel free to let me know what you think will happen when Thrawn gets to the galaxy far, far away. And remember, the Force will be with you. Always.